house for a time of my life with a Chinese wife. There were sliding doors of Fuji forest pine, and we would drink our tea as the crickets chimed. I dreamed I sat in an old cane chair, the morning sunlight seeping through slatted filigree, and it would wash over my feet and pool warm summer rain. At night, in my dream, I could hear the wind in the eaves and the mountain breeze whisper through the floor, lightly, lightly, coming up through the boards, the scent of jasmine from the backyard. Later, I cut a pipe from hardened bamboo joint, watched smoke curl up to royal blue ceiling. I dreamed I carried rugs from Pakistan, and I laid them in my Japanese house, and my wife would walk barefoot over them without a sound to the tokonoma, and she would read without blinking. I dreamed I hung white linen on the walls. It would ripple and wave in the breeze, just like the clean sheets hung on the line in the backyard. And I would awaken to the sound of my wife whispering. I stood naked in the middle of that house in my dream, arms outstretched and my head laid back. As the warm rain began to fall, the earth was green and dank, and my wife wrapped herself around me from behind. Her hands were warm, and when I looked in her eyes, I saw my son. I dreamed that rattan table laden with food and bottles of wine, ruby red and purple glow, an open gate, dogs scramble to bark, sounds of motorcycles coming up the dark street. I dreamed I saw my friends dance in my Japanese house, snap their fingers and shake their hair and beards, and the whole house would trampoline bounce. It would shimmy about like to take off. And when guitar played in my house in my dream, I would bang on the percussion pots, and the eaves would hum, and they would pulse, and they would beat. Reverb like a tuning fork was in each plank of pine. Oh, we would stand under the street lamp, and we would laugh, and we would dream. Thank you very much. Hey, we're going to bring James Granger, Master Magician, up here for a minute. He's going to do a little bit of a ring dance while I read this thing called The Immensity of the Action. Hey, give it up for James Granger. Are you having a good time or what? We certainly appreciate it. This is Venice Gas House Trolley without Benny Seeger. Marvin's Gardens is going to come up and rock you into the night in just a little while. And tip your bartenders. Hey, this is James Granger with the mighty ring dance. Hey, did you know everything is connected? That's the way it goes. You ready? I can't hear what you say. The immensity of the action is the baby screaming out the window in London, and a woman in India bending over a green kerosene stove, making chapatis, as a man shines shoes and does somersaults in Soho, and the child who is squatting by the lakeshore unending, as warm snapping turtles leap to the heavens, and an egret floats lazily up to the moon that is kissed on the crater that sparkles with Mars light. And the boy with the red string who wanders down hallways and streets filled with broken glass and dreams without stopping. And a drummer in Guinea who was born with 12 fingers and decided to walk through the savannah to catch a wildebeest that kneeled by the water and looked left for lions. And the girl who bled first on the cream-colored leaf of the banana tree that rose and blossomed at midday and drooped to the west where a cowboy sat reading poems of the steppe and the last train from Dallas. And the cow that was roped with a lonely lasso thrown by the hippie who sat smoking in Kathmandu and read the Bardo and digested Lao Tzu, who said in 3000 that the yang is in each valley. And the professor who found that the books were reversed and sat on his secret until he could publish, never heeding the call of the lady in France who was bartered for a necklace of the finest gold filigree, made by a man whose hands were scorched when Mrs. O'Leary kicked over the lantern and Chicago burned. As the cops went running down the street to the paddy wagon built by the sailor who skirted Cape Horn in the trades of December and froze in his hemp coat and ate 10 sardines that were caught off the coast of California in July by a boy with a net who was the 5th of 10 children, and he liked to stare at the sun and wade in the water, and the sea turtle that hauled herself out of the water to lay eggs on Galapagos, which were eaten by lizards stuck on Komodo, a fire-eating dragon that laughed at the volcano, which enclosed 3 lakes, one bluer than turquoise, another yellow with sulfur, and the third red with slag. From the iron ore deposits struck into steel by the men from Pittsburgh who went to the football game and called for 10 beers, from the girl who climbed stairs. She lived down the alley and was surrounded by lilies that wound round her room and smelled of talcum dusting. The girl in the jungles of Indonesia after her mandi, her mom sprinkled it on her so she went out to play. In the streets with her boyfriend and wore a new sarong. Woven by a witch who lived in Uzbekistan. Rode in a mortar and kicked it with a pestle. She carved from pure marble out of the quarry owned by a lord of the fiefdom in China during the split from the north, when we packed our trunks and headed down south. A train of 10 and a bottle of jade, carved by the Taoist, blinded by mercury, and cinnabar powder prescribed by the apothecary who owned an old text written on a hemp leaf, grown in Dali by the by. James Granger, all things are connected. James, thank you. James. You ready for beginning? Bag 'em up and hang 'em up. Here we go. Yeah.